Hello Booktube, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn and a special welcome to my special edition book haul. So what am I blabbering about? Special edition book haul. Well, special edition has a lot of meanings, and in the beginning of April I started a read-along of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn that so far, and I'm saying so far, has not gone swimmingly. But I still have hope. I'm not the most technological person, and this was my first attempt to do a read-along on Goodreads. And I noticed that people were telling me that they weren't seeing my posts. Well, back and forth with Goodreads wasn't that helpful. They kept on saying that my group was for adults only, and I never saw that on my desktop. But anyway, my partner, who is a tech person, tried to join the group, and for some reason it's for adults only, and if you don't put a birth date when you sign into Goodreads before you try to get into my group, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, reading A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, it won't let you see my posts or anybody's posts. So if you're still interested, and I hope you are, because I really want to talk about this book, because I read it really quickly and I had a very emotional experience reading it. I won't go into that right now, but it's almost like a rescue of memory, which is another book that I'm reading that I won't talk about in this video. But I had a lot of repressed memory about growing up in that particular part of Brooklyn, remembrances, things that were still there 50 years after this book was written. I'm trying to think, not after this book was set, not written. So please, if you are already in the group or have tried to get in the group, try to put any birthday down that's adult, and my partner did, and he got in. But I'm also still back and forth with Goodreads, and like I said, Jack of Spreadbookjoy has already read the book. We haven't talked about it yet. She did a few posts, so I think she got in, actually. I think she did. So please try. And that's my first special edition part of the book haul. Now the second special edition part of the book haul has to do with an actual event that Kim of Middle of the Book March and I have done for the past 3 years, and that is Mental Health May. Now both of us have had difficult times recently. As you know, I've had a knee injury and some anxiety around that, and also I was off my feet for a whole month. And when you get back to normal, you don't really get back to normal right away. It's a process, and I'm seeing physical therapy. I had my first physical therapy appointment just yesterday, and it really was helpful. And I also did some walking around outside. It was a little bit wobbly. I was wobbly, but I feel like I'm on the mend. However, Mental Health May is very important to me, and I want to do something bare bones. And I'm going to, down in the description box, I'm going to put, I'm going to link Kim's video. And what she says is that we have a prompt, we do have a prompt, and the prompt is odd, the odd number. So you can read an odd number of books. Now, 1 is an odd number, like Kim said, and we're going to read any number of books. If you read 1, you already have done, have participated in the readathon. So you're going to read books, as Kim said, to carry you out of some mental health challenges or stress or sadness or just escape. And it doesn't have to be a book about mental illness or mental health. She talked about the lobotomy And I wrote it down because I think I want to, in fact, I think our subscriber Nathan sent it to me already. It's by Charles Dully and Charles Fleming. I think I got the names right, I hope. But Kim has she talks about it in the video that I'm going to put down. And it's basically a horror story about how a young boy had he was one of the youngest persons to have a lobotomy, one of those very brutal and didn't work procedures in the, I don't know what year it was, but I'm definitely going to read that. But I also have a book that's just going to make me feel good. And I've read some of this before, and I've heard so many good things about it, and I've already started it. And this is a book that's going to keep me stress-free, hopefully, for the next month. And I really think that everyone should read it. It's My Life in France by Julia Child and Alex Prud'homme. And that's her husband, Paul. It was a great love affair between her and Julia Child. And I'm old enough, well, for a lot of things, but I'm old enough to remember the Julia Child TV show. And I'm pretty sure it was in the 60s, 70s. I even remember the Sesame Street Julia Grown Up. I think it was on Sesame Street where they kind of spoof it. But I started reading it, and I'm planning, hopefully, to go to Paris in June. And this is so delightful. I started reading it, and it was written in, the copyright says 2006 by the Julia Child Foundation, but I'm not sure it was written at first then. So yeah, so in August 2004, Julia Child and I, Alex Prud'homme, sat in her small lush garden in Montecito, California, talking about her life. And I'm not going to read any more, but she had a wonderful, exciting life. She really didn't know how to cook, and she went to Paris with her husband, who worked for the government. It's a wonderful book. I think that it's set because they're talking about that Paris and France are just getting away from the war, so it could be the 50s, I'm thinking. But the food is just delightful. Her life is delightful. She was delightful. And it says, exuberant, affectionate, and boundlessly charming. It chronicles in mouth-watering detail the meals and the food markets that sparked Julia Child's interest in French cooking. It is a wonderful picture of the most successful American export to France since Benjamin Franklin. And I know that people on BookTube have talked about this with great love and affection, and some of it sounds that I might have read it, and some of it, you know, with every reread, you get a different experience. And that was my experience with The Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This time more than ever. In fact, I'm starting it again. Hopefully, the people that are the members can join in and see what I've written up to chapter 3. And I plan to keep it up some way or another, because we need more stress-free books in our lives right now. At least I do, and I know Kim does, and Kim wants to read whatever she wants to read, and that's what I hope for Mental Health May. So I do plan to maybe have a TBR later in May or early in May, but that's all that we're going to do. And please, if you do read something for Mental Health May, just hashtag Mental Health May or me or Kim, and we want to know what books you're reading. Okay, so that is the second special edition part of my video. And the third special edition part is not really a special edition, but I think you'll find it amusing. I decided to try to read all the events, books from all the events that were happening. And that's how I got this book. And this is, I forgot to mention that My Life in France is a book from the library that I actually got in browsing in a real library for the first time in months and months. And it was a lovely experience. Of course, I was a little wobbling, but my physical therapist is right next door to a library. And I tell you that that was a wonderful feeling to be able to go into a library again, walk, such as it is, and get a book for People April. Because Julia Child, this is a wonderful memoir from Julia Child. It's about life, it's about France, it's about food, of course, but it's also a love affair between her and her husband, Paul. So that's enough I'll say about that. So what other books did I read or pick out for People April? Now, this is a book that I already have finished, so it's not part of the book haul, but it is David Sedaris' Happy-Go-Lucky. And this is an interconnected short story collection. I'm pretty sure, I think it is. And I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to go much into it, except to say that I haven't really enjoyed a David Sedaris book before this. And I don't know if it's me or I didn't get his humor, but now I want to start rereading this. But this is not Happy-Go-Lucky, in case you wanted to know. It's a pretty serious, grim story about mainly his father. I would say his father was a big actor in this book. Now, so back when restaurant menus were still printed on paper and wearing a mask or not was a decision made mostly on Halloween, David Sedaris spent his time doing normal things, but not really. And he spent, he's learning to shoot guns with his sister, visiting muddy flea markets in Serbia, buying gummy worms to feed to ants, and telling his non-Algerian father wheelchair jokes. But that's not really what this is about, in my opinion. This is really a serious book about his family history, and I think this is, if you really love David Sedaris, you might either like this, like I did, or maybe you won't think it's as funny. It has a very sarcastic humor in it, but I really suggest this book. So this is a book I finished, and the only books I finished, and is why I'm doing a book haul right now, is Happy-Go-Lucky and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I'm planning to read closer in April, hopefully with one of you. So what other events are happening in April? Now, I want to promote a kind of a new channel for me, and that is David Novak Reads Poetry. He's a lovely person, first of all, and a person who you can learn a lot about poetry from. As is Pat, also from Book Chat with Pat. As you already know, she loves poetry. Now, let me tell you my experience with poetry. My experience with poetry is writing it. Not now, but throughout my youth, I wrote some poetry. And it helped me with a lot of mental issues that I was dealing with, a lot of just situational issues that I was dealing with. And I have a lot of poetry, and I've also read my poetry at book slams, reading slams. I mean, I've done a lot with my own poetry. Reading other people's poetry, yes, I've done that, but not as much as I wanted to do. But there was always a poetry book that I was interested in reading, funnily enough, because of one of my favorite musical movies, and that's called The Music Man. Now, in The Music Man, let me just tell you, if you haven't seen the movie, please see the movie. I mean, watch the movie, because it's one of the best musicals that I've ever seen in the movie, because of the actors who were in it at the time. But this poetry book was mentioned. Now, it's called The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Khayyam. It's mentioned in the movie The Music Man 1962, specifically because Mrs. Shin, the mayor's wife, complains that the book recommended for her daughter is smutty, referencing the famous line from the Rubayat, "A loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and thou." She finds the imagery of people enjoying a meal and drink in the woods inappropriate. And in fact, that is on the cover, on the back of this book. Here with a loaf of bread beneath the bough, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and thou, beside me singing in the wilderness, and wilderness is paradise enow. So who is this guy, Rubayat? Rubayat is not his name was Omar Khayyam. And he has a very, very long name that I'm not going to attempt. In the 11th century in Persia, there lived a mathematician named, it's a long name, but the end of it is Omar bin Ibrahim al-Khayyam, or Omar, son of Abraham, the tent maker. Omar wrote poetry, and while his rhymes received little attention in their day, they were rediscovered and translated into beautiful English more than 7 centuries later by a gentleman and scholar named Edward FitzGerald. Meeting of the minds, a great collaboration of the past and the present, and FitzGerald's rendition of those passionate verses have become one of the best-loved poem cycles in the English language. So I thought for National Poetry Month, which it is, that I would read these small poems. They also have illustrations with each of the poems. So if you're, into illustrations with poems, I mean, this is a nice one. It says, "I sometimes think that never blows so red the rose as where some buried Caesar bled, that every hyacinth the garden wears dropped in its lap from some once lovely head." And here they are with a book between them. So this is going to be a delightful read, and I think it's also good for Mental Health May, because poetry not only helps the person who writes it, but it helps the people who read it. So I plan to read more poetry going on in the next few months, and I'm starting with this one. So let me know in the comments, have you read this book? Have you heard about it in other places beside a musical? I'm sure you have. But when I watched that movie and they mentioned that, I said, I have to get that book. And finally I got it. All right, so what other events do I have books to haul from? Well, now Angelia, my friend from Read and Reread, has a year-long readathon called Endless Drama. And I love plays. I love to read plays. I should read more Shakespeare plays, but I love modern plays, and I think that's the focus of her year-long readathon. And I picked one of her plays because I love August Wilson, and I love this cover. It's called The Piano Lesson, and it's the winner of the 1990 Pulitzer Prize for Drama. And look at the cover. It's amazing. And I became familiar with August Wilson because he has ties to the Twin Cities, where I got my bachelor's degree when I was in my late 30s. And I just love his use of language. I love the way he's trying to attack racism in a very adjacent way. So this says, it's heart-stopping. The play's real music is in the language. Mr. Wilson's most virtuosic writing to date. So it says that he's already, this was after he wrote Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, and the Pulitzer Prize winning Fences. And I've read all of those plays, and they're just wonderful. I really suggest that you read them. And in his second Pulitzer Prize winner, The Piano Lesson, he's fashioned his most haunting and dramatic work yet. At the heart of the play stands the ornately carved upright piano, which, as the Charles family prized hard-won possession, has been gathering dust in the parlor of Bernice Charles' Pittsburgh home. So Pittsburgh is another place that he has set most of his, or if not all of his plays. When boy Willie, Bernice's exuberant brother, bursts into her life with his dream of buying the same Mississippi land that his family had worked as slaves, he plans to sell their antique piano for the hard cash he needs to stake his future. But Bernice refuses to sell, clinging to the piano as a reminder of the history that is their family legacy. The dilemma is the real piano lesson, reminding us that blacks are often deprived both of the symbols of their past and of opportunity in the present. So, yay for Angelia for putting this on her list, and I'm definitely going to read it. I might wait to read it, but I took this out of the library, so I probably am going to read it either April or May. So let me know, have you read The Piano Lesson? Have you seen it as a play? I would love to see it as a play. Okay, so I have another book for endless drama that's not on her list, and I have a special reason why I'm going to show you this. And I think I showed you this before. Now, this happens to be an Agatha Christie play, a mystery play in 3 acts by the Samuel French Inc. And it's 10 Little Indians, her famous and very, of course, it started with, beside 10 Little Indians, it started with something that's very racist, and this is racist as well. But you have to understand the time that this was written. And of course, she changed the name to, and then there were none. But to read it as a play, I think, is a different experience. And why do I want to read it? This is my book. It's not from the it's originally from the library, but it was discarded, and I bought it. And I want to read it because I'm going to London for a few days in June, where I'm going to see Jack from Spreadbookjoy. So excited. And I'm going to see The Mousetrap, which has been, I think, since the 50s, playing in the West End. And it's a play that I always said that I want to see. I don't know what it's about, so don't tell me if you know, if you read it. I have an idea. In fact, when I got the tickets, I bought the tickets already, it sort of gave me, I hate that, it kind of spoiled a little bit, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to enjoy the play, The Mousetrap. And I thought, what a good way to enter into Agatha Christie's. I've never watched a play by Agatha Christie, and she's written a few plays, more than one. So I will let you know how I like The Mousetrap. If you've watched it in London, let me know. If you've read the book, let me know, but don't spoil it. So I plan to read, again, 10 Little Indians, but in a play format. So this, I guess, would be for endless drama as well. So what other events were in April? Well, it's also Picture This, which celebrates picture books. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a person who reads picture books anymore because I felt that I've read them all when I was young. Of course, I haven't read them all. In fact, the way picture books have changed since the 50s and early 60s, well, I would say 50s, even 40s, where I read, in the 50s, I read some picture books from the 40s. But this book, but I have grandchildren, and this book, my granddaughter recently came to Hawaii and she loved it here. And I heard about this book. It is, I think it's not published, traditionally published. and I'm going to tell you about this, but this book is out of print. I got this at the library, but I couldn't find it. I wanted to buy it for my granddaughter, and it's called Aloha Everything. And let me just show you the beautiful cover, and I'm going to show you some of the... Now, this was written by Kaylin, Malia, George, and May Waite, and I want to see if they... It says, discover this magical story that will take you on a thrilling journey through the breathtaking islands of Hawaii. Encounter mighty canoes crashing over ocean waves, royal hawks soaring high above the clouds, and most importantly, meet a courageous young girl who learns, grows, and comes to love her island home with all her heart. I'm hoping that they get this book in stock again so I can get it. And even the dedication, dedicated to my beautiful mother whose vibrant bedtime stories inspired this dream, to my ohana means family, who made it all possible, and to every child who's never seen themselves in a book. I promise that is changing. And that is by Kaylin, Malia, George, and somebody else said, to my family, to our team at Media Red, R-E-D. I'm going to show you some of the pictures because I think that since you might not be able to get this book right away, I'm sure they're printing new copies as we speak. But I just wanted to read you. I'm going to show you the first few ones. In the hush of the night and the moon still aglow, a small baby was born where the koa trees grow, where lehua blooms bright, where the mu'u gives chase, where the ocean spray's kiss meets the sky's close embrace. With her curls kapa soft, breath like breadfruit so sweet, this dear child evermore shared the island's heartbeat. And look at this gorgeous, gorgeous picture. This is wonderful. This is so colorful. And I'm wondering who was the illustrator in this book, and it doesn't really say. I'm wondering if it was illustrated by many people, because I heard that this was developed with many people. But let me just show you some. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'll show you some of the beautiful. Here's the sea. We can't have Hawaii without the sea. And we see the girl in the sea. I thought that was so beautiful. And now this is very important because this book is really, the book of course is not about hula, but hula is a big part of this book, and it says, what did hula teach her? And I don't know if anybody knows of the Merry Monarch Festival that's going around, but it's a spiritual experience for Hawaiians to dance hula. It's not like the Waikiki in the 1920s, though that's part of it. There is a Merry Monarch Festival that goes on at, I think it's the end of the month. I think it's very soon, because they're talking about it on media. And I just wanted to read you what she learned from hula, because I was just watching a TV show that was talking about how the hula halaus, halau means the groups that they dance. There's men's halaus, there's women's halaus, and they all perform, but they're not performing to win, because there is a winner, of course, but they're performing just because of the memory of their ancestors and the beauty and the love of Hawaii that we all have who live here. So this says, first she learned that land formed where flames tempered to stone, that the wind, wings, and waves all born life to be sown. Humble seeds burst to blooms, rock eroded to sand, and a world born ablaze turned to lush wonderland. Now all creatures they roam, those that swim or that fly, from the mountains to seas, or Mauka to Makai. Now, the first time I love this, I'm going to show you the picture, but Mauka, I live Mauka means toward the mountains, and Makai is the sea. So when I first came to Hawaii in 1976, and I asked for directions, they would say, okay, you walk 2 blocks Mauka, turn, and then walk Makai. I had no idea what they were talking about. But here's the pic. So this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous book, and as soon as it's available, I plan to buy it for my granddaughter. And it's also a poetry book that I just realized, so it's good for National Poetry Month as well. And so that is my Picture This Reading Event Special Edition. That doesn't make any sense, but that's okay. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And tell me what you've read in April and what you plan to read in May, and if you plan to have an odd number of books, 1 for Mental Health May, I would appreciate it. And thank you so much. And from the beautiful island of Hawaii, I bid you hang loose and aloha.